welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing a video that I have been in preparation for, thinking about, working on, and making notes of for the past like 2 weeks. One of you guys actually asked me to do a little test and let you know if the new Natasha Denona Sunrise palette, that is this beautiful warm palette with some yellows and some oranges and some shimmery gorgeous shades, you guys wanted to know that was comparable to the Colourpop Yes Please palette. As you can see, it's got a very similar look to it, similar color story. Not only was I going to find out if this could work well with this or make similar looks, but I was also curious if they were dupes, because some of you were like, could this be a dupe for such an amazing high-end palette? Challenge accepted. I was going to find out for you guys. And then as I was doing that and thinking about it and trying stuff, I also noticed another Boxycharm item looked a lot like a new high-end product that I received. This is the Modern Renaissance palette that you guys know is like the OG of ABH palettes. Everybody loved it. Everybody had it except for me. I'm late to the boat like always. But this has a beautiful color story, and a lot of you guys love to pull this out for fall. And we're coming into that season, whether we like it or not, and it's got a lot of great colors. And I know this in Fuego Crown palette has a very similar color story. This clearly has a very similar color story, and if you don't believe me, this is what they look like side by side. They both have beautiful browns, beautiful burgundies, beautiful reds, beautiful oranges. The colors are gorgeous, and I thought, why not see, because I just got this palette, and I know other people don't have this palette, so I was curious if I could also make a look with this that could be duplicated with this. And I'm not saying the formulas would be dupes or anything, because I didn't expect that at all, because ABH is known for their formula just like Natasha is, but I was curious if I could at least recreate a look that was like spot on, you couldn't tell the difference with. And just because I like to add on to the ands, I mentioned in a very recent video that I got the Ace Beaute like single shock shadows that look like the Colourpop Super Shock shadows. I ended up receiving all 4 because I do get 2 boxes, one in PR, one that I purchased. The first round I got the Huckleberry shade and the French Vanilla, which is a very silvery shade, a very cranberry shade. And then in the second box I got colors, I mentioned this in my description box, that kind of speak to me more, and I'm wearing them today on my eyes. This is Cotton Candy and this is Iced Latte. So I was curious because I know they're not dupes for these Super Shock shadows. These are just all shimmer all the time, and clearly some of the Super Shock shadows are shimmer glitters, but some of them aren't. How well did they play together? I kind of just wanted to give you a little bit of advice on that. So let's jump into this very in-depth, well-researched video, shall we? To start with the question that started this whole video, let's talk about these two. I watched a lot of videos when this gorgeous palette came out because, as you guys could probably tell, this is totally up my alley. I love oranges, I love yellows, I love sparkly shiny things. Warm hues are my favorite. So when I saw this palette come out, I was really excited, and I have said before and I'll say it again, this was a gift from the beautiful Erica. She has a new Instagram that I'm going to be linking below for you guys to check her out. She's lovely. She sent this to me as a, hey girl, get well, we miss you on YouTube, but take your time, feel better gift, and I love this. So many of you though saw this, and you also had heard and saw that it was very similar to the Yes Please palette from Colourpop, which is like 12 bucks, 15 bucks, whatever this is. This is crazy inexpensive, but you all know I love Colourpop. I think their formulas are amazing. These are standout quality. I've had this palette for over a year and a half, and I still love it, reach for it, rave about it. But how do they compare? Well, let's get into it. In a recent video I did called The Purge, where I was doing a huge declutter, I was actually wearing 2 different eye looks that day. One of them was the Colourpop palette. The other was the Natasha Denona palette. I also filmed myself trying on these products, and I have so many notes here because It really was something that I was really curious about because I understand a babe on a budget, this is like 65 bucks, not including shipping. That's a lot of money. Now, Natasha Denona is also known to have crazy expensive palettes that are 130 bucks. So, I mean, you get what you pay for with Natasha Denona because her product is amazing quality, but this one is definitely not as like crazy expensive. So if you're thinking of investing in it, I can understand why you'd want to know, do I need to buy this if I already have this? Great question. I had crazy high hopes that these would be, I knew they wouldn't be dupes formula-wise because Natasha Denona is a pricey gal for a reason, but Colourpop, again, I will never shoot you in the face because I love you. You definitely get the same vibe, you definitely get the same feel, and no one in my comments in that video said, hey, your eyeshadow looks a little funny, whereas there was another video that I recently posted that many of you know definitely didn't look similar, and it is from this trial. I can tell you these are really great, but they're definitely not dupes, formula-wise, obviously, but I meant like more like colors, saturation of colors, pigmentation. They're not dupes, but they both have their perks that the other one doesn't have. The colors are different. When I started my eye look, I did go into Morning over here on the Natasha Denona palette, and it is a beautiful yellowy orange shade. And over here, they do not have names, but I started with the more skin tone color right up here at the top, and I just kind of started my look that way. But already I was seeing a crazy difference with color pigmentation. This baby over here with Natasha Denona, very bold, very pigmented, very I am here, now layer something on top of me. This one was a different color. This one definitely came off more coral. This one definitely came off more red. So immediately I was already like, okay, seeing some differences. And then of course, the color you have to go into when you're comparing these palettes, the yellow. And I love a yellow. I'm not scared of yellow. I will get all up in that yellow's business. So I definitely went into the shade Citrine, definitely, because it's also my birthstone, November fire sign over here. I put that on my eye and I was like, bam, that did not need much. I just had a fluffy blending brush, went on my eye, and it was there. One layer and done. This beautiful yellow is beautiful, but I think this took like 3 to 4 times of building it up before it was even close to just the pigment of what this one had with one swipe. But again, Natasha Denona, pricey. Colourpop, great. 12 bucks, you know what I mean? And I really wanted to warm up the look and go into more of the reddish shimmer shades, because if we're gonna go into these, we gotta try the shimmers, right? I went into the Awakening shade in the Natasha Denona palette, but this one had more purple undertones of shimmer in it compared to the one over here that looks like it would have some purple in it, but it's really got more red going. It really just kept pulling that red pigment more than the purple. So they definitely weren't matching. I had to go back in with the shade, Azalea in there in the center and use that, and they still kind of weren't looking the same, but it was definitely closer. Then we got to the golds. The golds were really where you could tell a formula difference. So with Agate over here with the Natasha Denona palette, that shade is intended to blend with what you have going. It knows that you have put on some shadows ahead of this and you're looking to blend and marry and make it look beautiful and polished. This baby is pow! It is gold, it is glitter, it is all that is gorgeous on your eye, but it is so pigmented, it definitely covered things underneath it. So it wasn't blending in the same property way that this was. So they're both great, they're both beautiful, they're both intended for something different though. So they're great, but they have different properties. They were there for something different. Their goal was something different at mine. This one was to be pigmented on top of maybe some of these reds, whereas this blended beautifully and showed the gold, but wasn't in your face pow. I then wanted to keep trying to see if I could get some color dupes, and I tried to match Azalea here in the middle with the Natasha Denona palette over to a color that I thought maybe a better representation for it over here. This is a beautiful like coppery red shimmer shade. But this one, again, was way more red toned. The Colourpop was really pulling those warmer hues, whereas this palette was, again, intending to blend on itself, to marry into a beautiful, cohesive eye look, whereas these were much more pigmented as in statement pieces. So you could mix and match with Colourpop because they know that you do that with their other palettes. Each one had a different audience. Like, it was speaking to its own brand, which I can really appreciate from these brands. But the question at the end of the day is did they make a cohesive look? Yeah, they did. By the end of that look, and when I filmed a video after it, my purge video, nobody commented that they thought I was wearing two different eye looks. It looked the same on camera under all of these lights, because that can really change what it looks like in person versus on camera. It can really adjust the way the light hits it, the way that it balances. It definitely does. I would say these are really different palettes, even though they have a similar color story. I did achieve a look though from this that I could make with this. It just took a lot more blending, a lot more work, a lot more of the balancing the layers and things like that. But the same could also be said for Natasha, because if I wanted more of that gold, I was gonna have to build that up, whereas this gold was like, I am here, look at me be pretty. Also adding in some fun swatches with these guys. I thought that would be fun to let you know what they swatch like, but keep in mind on the eyes, they do look different from swatches sometimes, especially when you're playing with other colors. So keep that in mind. This is Morgan. This is the Yes Please palette. This is Citrine from Natasha. The yellow from Colourpop. Keep in mind this is with fingers, not brushes. This is Awakening with Natasha Denona. This shade with Colourpop. This is Natasha. This is Colourpop. Very different, but they look similar in the pan. So then I went into Azalea to try to match the Colourpop shade. And here's Azalea from Natasha. Much closer, but they still have some different warmth properties. Like Colourpop has still got the red undertone. And now to do the golds, because we gotta know what the golds look like. So this is Agate here from Natasha, and the gold from Colourpop is stunning. So I'm gonna do them right here. So this is Natasha, Colourpop. You can kind of see on my pale hand here that they already have different properties. Like this one looks really pigmented, this one looks bold. This one is there, but it definitely is like meant to layer on top of something else. This one could easily be a standalone. Really, it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. Again, they're two different brands, two different target audiences, so that totally makes sense. But I still love both of these, but the question is, at the end of the day, if you have this, do you need this? Need is a, you know, personal preference, really. I love having both of these in my collection, but I wear these colors a lot. You guys tell me all the time, Nicole, you look really good in those fire colors, but could you give us something else every now and again? Because, you know, I love these types of shades, so I love having both of these in my collection. It's really up to you, but I was able to achieve a look similar to this with this. So keep that in mind. Next, I wanted to see if I could make my babes on a budget that didn't have this palette, just like I didn't for years, use this palette as a replacement. And I had a personal fail in my last video. My most recent video is where I had one of these on each one of my eyes. And there was an immediate disclaimer when you go into that video saying there was a makeup blunder here. I had two different eyeshadow palettes on. This one was this eye, this one was this eye. And when I was putting them on, it took a little bit of work to make them look similar, but then on camera, under lights, and with all my editing, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so distracting for me that if I'm noticing it, I know you guys are gonna notice it. Which is why I made sure to make that disclaimer that, hey, I'm doing some work behind the scenes on another video, and I can kind of dissect why now that I've looked back at the footage and messed with these palettes some more. Let's talk about it. I do think you can get similar looks from these palettes. So if you are a babe on a budget, you can use this fall to achieve looks that are somewhat like this. However, they're not dupes, there is a lot of differences, and obviously formulas are always going to be different because ABH is known for it. But let me show you what shades I went into to try to create a duplicate look that sort of went well, sort of didn't, and I can tell you what I should have done differently to help you out. The first shade I went into with the ABH palette was the burnt orange shade. I really like this color. It is a color that really speaks to me. This is this palette. This went in my crease and it is beautiful. To match that, the closest thing I had was this shade here in the Crown palette. Right here. So you can already tell a little bit of a difference, but keep in mind with shading and buffing, I can make this look similar. Next, I went into Realgar over here. That is this shade right here. And look at the consistency, look at the red vibes. It's very pretty. I like that a lot. To match that, I went into the fourth from the top shade right over here. And again, with some blending and smoothing, you can kind of make them look alike, but clearly they're not dupes in color. But they're close, man. In person right now, ooh, they are close. You just gotta buff and blend sometimes because formulas are different. Next, to warm up that outer corner for that beautiful fall look, I went into the shade Cypress Umber over here. It's this dark, beautiful chocolate shade. Here it is here. So pigmented. And I was really shocked with how pigmented this shade was when I put it on my eye, and I'm shocked with how pigmented it is now. This shade right here was the color I had to go in. That would be similar. Here we go. Ooh, here we go. And again, this color is so pigmented from ABH that I took some buildup to get the colors right. And this was the first part of my struggle with these palettes, to make the eye look symmetrical, to make it look similar. I had to do a lot of building of this shade to make it look anywhere close to that. So at this point, I was going in on the lid. I went to the shade Tempera up here for my lid. Now this was much more pigmented than I expected, and I don't know if it's going to show up well here on my forearm because I'm a little pale right now, but it's very pigmented on the eye, which you see in the clip. And the only thing I had to compare that to in this palette, though, was the shimmery light shade. It is the only shade in here, but it is shimmery, so I knew there'd be a difference. It's a really pretty color. It's hard to again see on the skin, but you might be able to see it better in the clip where I'm trying to apply it. But in order to match that shimmer with that color, I went over here into Primavera, and I really love this shade in the ABH palette. I think this palette is stunning, and I liked this color for it. And you can kind of see that shimmer there on my arms to kind of lay on top and marry to blend to try to make a cohesive look for the symmetrical eye look I was trying to create. But what I should have done at that moment, is I'm looking back at the footage and kind of re-looking at these pigments and these formulas, is I should have either made the crown side lighter or the ABH side darker. I probably should have made this a bit darker because that's all I had to play with. I had nothing else in this palette to kind of lighten up the eye. So when I looked down in that last video that I posted, I could completely see the difference where one of my eyes looked lighter and brighter and the other one had a lot more of that fall shadowy look. Again, both beautiful, but that's where I went wrong as far as applying the shadows to try to look the same. But I mean, the consistency on all of these swatches is beautiful, and you can see how they are similar. So again, I do think with the right technique and right layering and blending, there will be some work involved. You could make somebody who has this eye look that you've seen on Instagram and you love it, you could make it from this. It just may take a little bit of time, but also add your own flair. You know how I don't like copycats. I think you do you, and if this makes you feel beautiful, you can absolutely achieve a look you see from this. At least as far as these warmer shades go. I was really impressed with the pigmentation from these shades though. So if you are curious, hey, do I want this palette? I have this palette. I do really like it. The lighter shades in this really add some variety that unfortunately this palette doesn't have. Now these pans are huge though. You're gonna have this palette forever, and it's great quality. I really like it. You saw how consistent these swatches were. I mean, stunning. I like that I have some options with the lighter tones in this palette, and the formula is really, really good. And this is probably the only brush that I've ever gotten with a palette that I'm like, oh, I can use this, because I did use this during my try-on versus some of my other favorite brushes. This is a little rough, not gonna lie, but we're not talking about the brush. We're talking about the shadows. I do really like this, but again, babes on a budget, you could get looks from this, like this, from this. All right, now let's talk about Colourpop a little bit more, because you know I can't stop talking about Colourpop. I love them, and I adore their Super Shock shadows. I have loved their Super Shock shadows for years now. They are one of my favorites. They're super simple and easy to do, and I feel like I don't need anything underneath on my eyes to just apply one of these Super Shock shadows and go. And when I got the Ace Beaute single shadows here, obviously they look like the Super Shock shadows. I was expecting something similar. Now these suckers are crazy shimmery. So the first two I got here, this one is Huckleberry. This is Huckleberry here. Definitely has these purple hues to it. It's got the red undertone, but definitely more purple and definitely shimmery. This shade, a lot of you said you actually really liked on my eye. This is the shade French Vanilla. I mean, whew. Really pretty, really poppin'. And then in my second box, I got these two. I got Cotton Candy and Ice Latte. Cotton Candy isn't necessarily as soft, but it is stunning on the eye. Like, that's beautiful. Ice Latte, I've actually reached for quite a bit. I'm wearing this today along with Cotton Candy and a Colourpop shadow. Look at that, beautiful. So the color that, I don't have a lot of dupes for this, so I was doing my best today to just kind of marry this with some Colourpop shadows that I have already, just to kind of like make an eye look, but also see if I could do some comparisons. Iced Latte and the shade DGAF from Colourpop are kind of similar, so I have them both in my eye look today, but I'm just curious how they swatch next to each other. Obviously DGAF is a lot deeper and warmer, but you kind of get a similar vibe. They're both very consistent. I mean, look at the swatches, they look really good. Obviously this one is a lighter tone, this one's a darker tone, but there's shimmer throughout both of those, and they look really nice. Another shadow that I have that's a shimmery shade is Let Me Pass, which is a stunning fall color. I got this last year after Tati recommended it. I'm obsessed with this. Look at that. Oh, beautiful. Stunning, stunning, stunning. Now, I did wear these, the newer Ace Beaute ones, the lighter shade that I thought I could get away with easier without anything underneath by themselves. And they do better than I think Huckleberry did. I think Huckleberry needs something underneath it, personally, at least when I was applying it. And the shade French Vanilla, I just think looks prettier on top of something else to give it that pal look like I wore in my video where I was trying these on. These I did wear standing alone, and I think their formulas are really consistent and nice. I do have one bold shade here from Colourpop, but it doesn't have any shimmers in it. This is the shade Animal. I bought this a couple of years ago, and it is the most stunning, vibrant, pinky color. I'm gonna put that over here so I'll kind of compare it to Cotton Candy. Let's see. Kind of gives you an idea for pigment and stuff. I mean, beautiful. So I mean, Ace Beaute really did kind of like, I feel like model these after some Super Shock shadows. I love Super Shock shadows. However, the shimmer ones I really like to pair with something that's not shimmer. I like something that has some like matte tones to it. So I'm curious if they come out with anything else, but this is kind of a grand introduction to these Ace Beaute pots, but I told you I wanted to compare them to Super Shock shadows because I wasn't really sure how they were applying when I only had these two. Again, I think these are nice, but I kind of think these are better, the lighter colors, the Cotton Candy and Ice Latte, because I didn't have any problem wearing them alone, but the Huckleberry shade I felt like was kind of patchy and then later in the day creased. But if you put something underneath it, it doesn't. FYI. I feel like I've been swatching for days now, but this hopefully gives you guys an idea of what I'm thinking as far as if you are a babe on a budget and you can't spend some money on extra makeup this fall, but you're wanting to pull out some fall fave looks, these warm pumpkin spice latte, crisp apple fall leaves feeling looks. I think that you could do them with some stuff you've gotten from Boxycharm, Colourpop. These are really inexpensive brands. But if you already have these and you're like, girl, I'm ready to kind of maybe take my game up a notch, I do recommend this palette. I think it is beautiful. I think it is stunning. I've reached into it a ton. And the formula is amazing. Same with the Crown palette. The Crown palette, I think, again, I got this in Boxycharm. I didn't pay for this myself, but this sucker is beautiful. It lasts all day. And again, babe on a budget, you don't necessarily need this. But if you have this or something like it, and you're like, again, I kind of want to up my game, tell me, do you like the Renaissance palette? Everybody likes the Renaissance palette. I don't think I've ever heard somebody say they didn't like the Renaissance palette, but I'd never tried it until recently. And again, this was gifted to me too. This was gifted to me by the amazing Renee, who again wanted me to feel better during my recovery, knew I had never tried this, and she was like, girl, try this. And I love it. I do. And again, this has more variety than this because of the lighter shades that you have in here, and the formula is great to blend. Colourpop Super Shock shadows. You can never go wrong, in my opinion. But I can tell you I'm more impressed with these Ace Beaute ones with these shades because I do feel like they can stand on their own and they blend well. These don't crease. I still think the Huckleberry one did on me, but you know, potato, potato. Super Shock shadows are only $6 and really beautiful. So if you did not get these Ace Beaute ones, again, you can still get something like this for a steal from Colourpop. Fall is coming. We have a lot of fun options to wear this fall. What are you excited to wear? Do you have any dupe ideas for us down below, or just things that you could help with your babes on a budget? Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you happen to be new to my crazy little channel, hi new friends, I hope you take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button down below to see all of the fun, loud, weird, unique videos I do every single week. Bye friends!